everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to episode 3 of my complete beginner's guide to crochet. So in today's lesson I'm going to be teaching you how to do the UK treble stitch and the UK half treble stitch. Now this lesson is designed for people that have already watched my lesson 1, where I showed you how to hold your hook and your yarn, and we learnt how to chain. Also, you should have completed lesson 2, where I showed you how to do this lovely UK double crochet stitch. I showed you how to weave in your ends, and I also gave you a little tip how to use your stitch markers. So if you need a recap or you need to go over any of those techniques, I will link lessons 1 and 2 down in that description box down below. But here we go with lesson 3. Again, for this lesson, I'm going to be showing you using Starcraft Special DK in this lovely colour, Pale Rose. Now, these swatches that I've already made up, just for your reference, this is Starcraft Special DK in the colourway Sage, and this little swatch is made up in the colourway Gold. Again, I'm going to be using my 4.5mm Clover and More hook. You're going to need a darning needle to weave in those ends, and you need a small pair of scissors to cut your yarn. So we're going to start. I'm going to be showing you the UK treble stitch. Now I spoke to you in lesson 2 about US and UK terminology. I'm from the UK, so I use UK terminology. This is a treble stitch. If you use US terms, then you're going to call this a double stitch. The stitch is exactly the same. So you can see, if I show you the swatch from last lesson, when we were crocheting up those UK doubles, quite a tight, shorter style stitch. Now this one here, if I can just show you up close, this whole part here is the stitch. So it's quite a bit taller, it works up a lot quicker, but as you can see, it comes out quite a bit holier. So again, not ideal maybe for baby blankets. You don't want little fingers getting stuck in there. Ideal for other projects, other blankets, scarves, anything that you want to make up quite quickly. So we're going to start by putting our slip knot on our hook. Now if you need to go over these techniques again, this is from lesson 1. But again, I'm just going to quickly show you. So my tail is at the front. I'm going to wrap my yarn around those 2 fingers. I'm going to go under, grab that yarn with my hook, pull it through, take my fingers out just gently, and then tighten that up. So we're ready to go. So again, holding my tail end out of the way, we're going to chain 11. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 and 11. Now what I tend to do if I'm making up a swatch, I will put just 1 row in of our UK doubles. So again, in the second chain from our hook, so not this one here, I'm just going to put in a whole row of UK doubles. The reason that I do this, it just gives me something a little bit more solid to get a hold of. So 3, working those doubles as we did before, all the way along our chain. 9 and 10. So I've done my first row. Looking down on those V's, we should have 10 stitches. So before we go on to row 2, what we need to do now is do a turning chain of 1. Now I'm going to explain about the turning chain once we've done a few rows up. Some people like to do a turning chain here of 2, some people like to do 3. I tend to stick to the 1 just so that I can keep my edges nice and straight, but I will explain there is another way that some people use. But for now, just bear with me, we are still going to just do a turning chain of 1. Then we're going to be flipping our work. Again, we are going to be looking down on those V's like we covered in lesson 2. Remember, we have chained up 1. We're going to be working in this first V here. This is how we treble. So before we put our hook in here, we're going to yarn over. Okay, then I tend to put my finger here so that that doesn't ping off. So again, I'll do that. We're going to yarn over. So literally, we're yarning over from back to front. I'm going to hold that yarn in place using my finger here. I just don't want it to ping off when I start to work. Looking down on our work in that first V, we're just going to push through as we did before. Grab that yarn, pull it back through the whole of that V, and we are left with 1, 2, 3 loops on our hook. This is how I used to remember. This is treble crochet. Then, as before, grab that yarn, pull through 2 loops, not all the way through, just 2 loops, and then we'll be left with 1, 2 loops on our hook. Grab that yarn again, pull through 2, and we have finished our first treble. Again, you can see at the bottom of that stitch there's that big hole. We're not working in there. We're looking down on our work. We need to identify the next V. Before we work in there, we need to yarn over, holding my yarn in place, push through that next V, grab the yarn, pull through the one that's on your hook. So we have 1, 2, 3 loops on our hook. We're going to grab the yarn, pull through just 2. We have 1, 2 loops on our hook, grab the yarn, pull through both of those. We have another treble. As you can see, this is a much taller stitch. Now we're going to carry on with our third. So looking down on your work, identifying the next V. It's going to be yarn over, hold that in place, push your hook through, grab that yarn, pull it through. So I have 1, 2, 3 loops on my hook. Grab that yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, pull through 2. We have our third treble. So this is how we're going to carry on. So just watch me first and then have a practice. So here's my next stitch. It's going to be yarn over first, push through, grab the yarn, pull through, so you have 3, grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, pull through 2. In the next stitch, yarn over first, push through, grab the yarn, pull through, grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, pull through 2. I'm going to do it one more time and then you can have a practice. Yarn over first, push your hook through, grab the yarn, pull through, grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, pull through 2. So I suggest what you do now is just stop the video and then just have a little bit of a practice, and I will meet you at the end. 9 and 10. So again, that last little stitch on the end sometimes is a little bit harder to see. That's why I tend to keep my swatches at 10 stitches so that you can quite easily count as you go along. If you refer back to lesson 2, I did give you a tip on how to use your stitch markers and then mark the beginning and the end of each row just while we're practicing. So we've done row 1. Before we go on to do row 2, we must remember to do that turning chain, flip our work. Remember not to work in the chain. We're going to be working in this first stitch here, and we're going to go again. So it's yarn over, push through that first stitch, grab your yarn, pull through, grab the yarn, pull through 2, grab the yarn, pull through 2. So again, just work your way along the tops of those stitches, remembering that we're yarning over first before we start our stitch. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Now I do like the motion of this stitch. You seem to get into a nice rhythm. So again, just carry along row 2 and I will meet you at the end. So I've come to the end of my row 2. I have 10 stitches going all the way along. Just keep checking. Now I said to you that I like when I'm doing my swatches or blankets or scarves, at each end I literally just chain up 1. Now some people, and I will now show you, like to chain up 2. So if I were to chain up 2, 1, 2, what they then do is they turn their work, remembering we've chained 1, 2. Now they're not going to work in this first stitch. What they're going to do is count this as 1 treble crochet for the next row. So they would then work in the next stitch along. Now if I just show you that. So I'm not working in this first V, I'm working in the second one along. I'm going to do my treble crochet. So they're going to count this chain 2 as 1 stitch, this as the next stitch, and then they carry on. Now I find that I tend to have a larger gap here and at the beginning of each row. Also, when I worked along the row coming back, I would have to identify the top of that chain 2. Now when you're first starting, that's not always an easy thing to do. So if I just take this out, put my hook back in, I just like to do a chain of 1, and then when I look down, work on those V's. I'll always have V's. When I get to the end, I haven't got to worry about working in a chain 2. There's always going to be a V. So literally, just for practicing purposes, I would suggest that you do it how I show you. Now when you go on to read patterns or watch other tutorials, especially with my granny square tutorial, I will start with a chain 2 up or chain 3 up, and then I will say count that as 1 treble crochet. But obviously, as you watch my tutorials, everything will become clear. It sounds a little bit confusing, but for now, when we're just doing our swatches, and this will work nicely, as I say, for blankets or scarves, when you're doing your trebles, just chain 1 up before you turn your work. Now I'm just going to carry on for a few more rows, then I'll show you what my work looks like and we can fasten off. So I've worked up a couple more rows. So just to recap how to fasten off, you're just going to chain one. Okay, leave your hook in for the moment. We're going to snip that yarn. Leave a reasonable end, enough for you to be able to weave in nicely, and then just pull through with your hook. Then you're going to just cinch that down, and there you go. So to weave in your ends, just a recap. I'm going to thread up my darning needle. Then I'm going to flip my work, and on the backs of the stitches, we're just going to go to and fro. I tend to go to and fro 3 times. So just using those stitches, we're going to go once. Make sure you're not pulling it too tight. Then we're going to go back on ourselves. Again, using the backs of those stitches. Oops, so that's twice. I always leave myself too much of an end. There we go. And then just a third and final time. Now, just the way of crochet, these ends get lost nicely. Nobody's really going to notice them apart from you. So when you're happy, that's nice and secure, take your needle out, get those scissors and cut as close to your work as you possibly dare. Make sure you don't snip your work. I'll do the same with this tail end here, and there you have your treble crochet. So that's our trebles. So what I'm going to show you now is the UK half treble stitch. So this stitch is in between the size of a double crochet and a treble. Now I do like this. It's a little bit more dense than our trebles. And as you can see, you have this nice ridged effect. So I've used this stitch when I make up my pumpkins, when I make up my little pom-pom hats for Christmas. It's just a lovely textured look. Now, as I say, this is UK terms for half trebles. If you're using US terminology, this would be half doubles. The stitch is exactly the same. So again, what I did to start my swatch, I've just chained 11, and then I'm just going to put a row of UK double crochet into this chain, just so that it gives us something to hold on to. And 10. Okay, so again, we're left with 10 stitches. Again, we're just going to chain one up before we turn. And now we're going to start our half trebles. So with a half treble, remembering we've chained this one up, so we're going to work in this first V here. We are again going to yarn over first. We're going to push through the whole of that V, grab the yarn, pull through. So we have 1, 2, 3 loops on our hook. Now this is how it's different to a full treble. We're going to grab that yarn and then just gently pull through all 3 loops. Okay, so I'll show you that one again. Look down on your work. Here's our next V. We're going to yarn over first. We're going to push through, grab the yarn, pull through. So we have 1, 2, 3 loops on our hook. Grab the yarn and just gently pull through all 3 of those loops. Now this is the half treble, so here we go again. Looking down, this is our next V, yarn over, push through, grab the yarn, pull through. We have 3 loops. you're going to grab the yarn and pull through all 3 loops. So just carry along this row, remembering to yarn over first. When we have our 3 loops, we're going to grab that yarn and pull through all 3. And this is how we half treble. Carry along and I'll meet you at the end. And 10. Make sure you get hold of that last stitch. So before we turn, make sure you do your chain 1 up. Turn your work. Look down on those V's. Here's my first one. And we're going to go all the way along row 2. So it's just remembering with this one, remember to yarn over first. When you have your 3 loops, you're going to pull that yarn through all 3. So again, I'm just going to work to and fro. I'll add some rows and then I'll show you what mine looks like. So I've worked a few more rows of my half trebles. I do really love the effect of this stitch. And as before, just to fasten off, chain 1 up. Cut your yarn, leaving a nice tail end. And then just pull that through and cinch down your knot. Now I'm going to go ahead, weave in my ends like I showed you before, and then I'll meet you back here. So that's the end of today's lesson, and that is the end of this series of 3, my complete beginner's guide to crochet. So I do hope that you found this series helpful. Go ahead and practice your doubles, your half trebles and your treble crochets, and then what you can do is follow some of my beginner friendly tutorials. Maybe the first one you want to do is tackle one of the fabulous granny squares. I have my face scrubbies. I've got some lovely little Christmas decorations you can have a go at. I will link everything in the description box down below. Please do remember to give me a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel and I will see you here next time. Bye bye.